All right, it is time to get the party started, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the next Headquarters Rio virtual training. We are glad you've made it here. Hopefully you hear me now, for those of you who are having trouble hearing the music. If not, then I think you may be having a problem on your end, because we are getting reports from other viewers that they can hear just fine. So anyway, we are going to get started. This is tips and tricks for navigating IR websites. Now, I always like to explain what IR means in a world of acronyms that we are in here in the military. That's individual reservist, and it's just a way of referring to both IMAs, which I am one, or PIRR, people who do things like Civil Air Patrol or Academy liaison work. So if you're an IMA, which the majority of IRs are, if you see the IR moniker, it applies to you, okay? All right, let's first cover some ROEs for today's training. This is a Microsoft Teams CVR, as you hopefully know it, live event. So let me explain how that works. This is happening within CVR, and I am, in the CVR platform as well as the moderators. You, on the other hand, as the attendee, you might be in Teams if you are a Teams user, but you don't have to be. The video and audio and slides, it's one direction only. So you can hear and see me and what I choose to show you, but I can't see or hear you. The only way you're going to be able to communicate with us is via the Q&A chat. So let me explain how that works. First, we have just turned the Q&A chat off. And that's because I want you to pay attention to me. I'm a public affairs officer and a glutton for attention. You're just going to have to put up with it. But the team has worked really hard on these slides and to give you all this information. And what we have found is if the Q&A is open during the briefing, people spend so much time asking questions and getting them answered in the Q&A that they miss the actual information of the brief. So the Q&A, when it does open later on in the briefing, is moderated, which means when you post something, it's not going to be seen by the other attendees until one of our moderators publishes it and answers it. If it is a question that would be beneficial to the other attendees, then they will publish it to everyone. If it's something where it's more specific just to you, they'll answer you directly, but everybody else won't see it. So that's part of the moderating function of the Q&A. What I do ask is that you stay in the training lane. And if you have questions about the websites that we're talking about or computer connectivity, CAC access, all that kind of stuff, we are definitely going to try and help you out. But if you have questions about I don't know, the steps for IDT lodging reimbursement, I'm going to ask that you go to the HQ Rio website, watch the training we did about that, and or use the quick guide. But there's a lot of other resources, and gosh, we'd be here all day, let's be honest, if we were going to do a Q&A over everything related to being an IR. So at the link that you clicked to get here, a recording of this training will render probably about a half an hour after it's over. So if you think it's awesome and you want to share with all of your reservist friends, by all means, just send them the link. They'll be able to watch the recording straight from that. And the questions and answers that we publish will also be on that link for them to see. So hello. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Erin Carl. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for HQ Rio. We theoretically are located in Buckley Air Force Base in East Denver, Colorado, but and that's where the headquarters for HQ Rio is. I am, like many, telecommuting, and I am an IMA, so I'm actually in North Carolina in the basement of my home, coming to you live. And we have moderators here from, gosh, all over the place. We have some HQ Rio staff members, we have some detachment commanders and staff, and we're lucky enough to have two fine gentlemen from Air Force Reserve Command A6 here to answer some questions for you, regarding this computer stuff. So if once we do open the Q&A, keep in mind that sometimes we've got over 150 people on here right now. It may take a few minutes to get your question answered. Just hang out, and we promise we won't end this until every question's been answered. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? First, I'm going to cover just general pointers regarding CAC access from home on your personal computers. Then we're going to talk about webmail and the Air Force portal, desktop anywhere, which I'm a big fan. And then we'll go over some individual websites. All right, first, let's talk about CAC access. First off, you need a CAC reader. Now you can order them from Amazon or wherever, but you can actually ask your URC or your detachment for one. Either should be able to get you hooked up with one and we can issue it to you. Probably will take a little longer than ordering one from Amazon. That's up to you. And for those not familiar with the term URC, that's your Unit Reserve Coordinator. Every active component that has Air Force IMAs assigned to it has a Unit Reserve Coordinator. It's an active duty or full-time civilian. Sometimes it's their full-time job. Most of the time it's an additional duty. But that is a person that you can go to ask a lot of questions about being a reservist. So you should know who your URC is. Most of you have a URC. If you're centrally managed career field, you may not, but most do. These are the words I want you to remember. Repeat after me. Authentication certificate. This is new. Like we've had, 2 or 3 certificates on our CACs for a long time. But they're moving to using just the authentication certificate. And later in a slide, I'll kind of show you what that may look like when you pull your certificates up. But that when in doubt, use your authentication certificate. Militarycac.com. This is not an official military website. However, a lot of the comm guys will go to it just as often as you might. If you're not familiar with this website, it is a one-stop shop for all the instructions and troubleshooting and certificates and all kinds of things regarding CAC access on personal computers. It's really fantastic. It's sort of information overload. It's got a good search function. The people there are very helpful, but definitely bookmark that site. It definitely comes in handy. Here are some general rules of thumb when it comes to using military websites on a personal computer. The first thing is always start with Internet Explorer. Yes, I know Internet Explorer is not really supported anymore. Yes, I know that Edge is supposed to be the new Internet Explorer. Yes, I know you'd much rather use Chrome or Safari, but these websites, most of them were coded to render correctly or as correctly as they can in Internet Explorer. So, even if you don't have it native to your computer, you can download it. You just Google download Internet Explorer. And a lot of times that browser is going to give you the functionality you need to be able to do what you need to do. Now, in Internet Explorer, there is something called compatibility view. I'll be honest, now I'm public affairs, I'm not a computer weenie, but I don't really know what that means, but I don't really feel like I need to know all the details. What I do need to know is this is where you go to find the compatibility view settings on Internet Explorer. You drop down the little gear and you'll add an extension. So you'll add af.mil, for instance, or health.mil, whatever the end of the website is that you're having issues with. And a lot of times that will solve the rendering issues you might be having. So become at least a little familiar with compatibility view when using Internet Explorer, even on a .mil computer, to be honest. Edge, Chrome, Safari, these are hit or miss. Sometimes people can get them to work. Sometimes I tend to use Chrome, for instance, and quite a few of the websites I have no problems with in Chrome. But a lot of the websites will tell you that they're not coded to work there. So if they do, it's like a happy accident. There are some extensions that can help mimic the properties of Internet Explorer. So I've heard of people using those with Chrome, for instance, to get the websites to render correctly, as opposed to just downloading Internet Explorer. My Mac users, good luck. a lot of these websites will just flat out tell you they're not going to work on a Mac. However, some people have had some success with emulators or extensions for Safari that will, again, mimic what the environment is in Internet Explorer. But really, one of your best solutions is going to be to set up Desktop Anywhere, which I will talk to you about in just a minute. Okay. You know, it was kind of interesting. Hopefully you have taken the Making It Easy to Serve survey that is out right now. If not, please do. It was sent to you via an email in MyPERS. We put it on the Rio Connect app on our Facebook page. It's going to be open until the 13th of August. One of the questions is about all these different websites and you know, your level of satisfaction, I guess, with each. I was actually pretty shocked that there are a lot of people that are having trouble with webmail right now. So I played around with it, first off, this is the URL that you need to use for if you have us.af.mil email you're trying to get into. Use Internet Explorer. I wasn't able to do it in any other browser but that. It's kind of weird. You'll see this Outlook screenshot here. When you first go to it, it's going to look just like a Microsoft website, but you'll type in your email. So I type in my global email address. It's at that point that it recognizes that you're asking for access to a military email system, and then it will direct you to something with a big Air Force symbol. And this is the other thing. Don't use your email certificate. It doesn't work anymore. You need to use your authentication certificate. Now, this is a screen capture of what I see in Internet Explorer when my certificates pop up. The email certificate says email in the issuer. The other two don't. It's just a number that's different. Now, in some other uses for my CAC, it'll actually say, you know, authentication where that certificate is listed, so it's easy to find. This one, it's not. So I just happen to know that for me, the extension with 51 after it, that's my authentication certificate. So if you pull your certificates up in a different browser or using Desktop Anywhere, you'll see where it's labeled authentication and just make note. That's the one you're going to want to use. So I did that. I tried in Chrome. I tried a bunch of different things. I was able to get into my webmail using Internet Explorer. I believe I had to use compatibility view, typed in my email, used my authentication certificate, and that worked. So hopefully that will work for you. The Air Force portal. Now this has been around a long time. They've made some really nice changes to it. For me, there are quite a few websites that you know, I might get through MyPERS or the AFPC Secure apps through MyPERS, but there are some that I have saved as favorites in the Air Force portal. So Air Force portal is usually pretty easy to get to regardless of browser. Again, when in doubt, Internet Explorer. But I wanted to show you this. In the quick links section of the main homepage, if you search for a page, the more you type, the more it'll narrow down you know, which links fit, you know, what you're searching for. So for instance, here I typed in AFPA to get to AFPAS. And then if you hover next to it, you'll see add to my favorites. So if you do that, then on the side, on the right-hand side of that homepage, your favorites will always be there and you won't have to go searching for them again. In addition, if you see the little star where it says my favorites, just off to the edge where it's sort of almost cropped. Again, it's one of those that doesn't really show up unless you hover. There's an edit function there where you can actually pull up all your favorites and edit those. You can star some of them, so they're the ones that show up first. But that favorites thing is a pretty sweet little function of Air Force Portal. So if there are certain websites that you know you don't want to have to search for, you just CAC into the portal, and then it's much easier to get to those websites via the portal. It sort of authenticates you when you go in. Okay, can I get an amen for Desktop Anywhere? Okay, now part of the survey results show me that either people have yet to hear of it, which blows my mind because I've talked about it, I don't know how many times, but, or they just haven't bothered to set it up. I'm telling you, it is worth it, okay? If you are missing the kind of functionality that you have when you are on a government laptop or a government desktop on base, this is as close as you're gonna get. So what Desktop Anywhere does is it creates a partitioned window and within that window, it's like you're working on a government computer. So at my computer setup here, I have 2 monitors. I'm looking at one and now I'm looking at the other. And I actually have both my personal computer going on one monitor, and then I pull the window for Desktop Anywhere over to the other monitor, and I can just work back and forth. It's brilliant. You can map to share drives. So when I first started using Desktop Anywhere, I went and mapped to one of the share drives at our office, and I put a folder there, and I save everything I do on Desktop Anywhere. I save in that folder. That way, when I go back, when this COVID mess dies down and I get to actually go back to the office, I'll be able to access everything I worked on. You get full Outlook, which is amazing. Full functionality, very similar to when you VPN in or if you're on a government laptop. So if you go to the Air Force portal, there's a search function in the upper right-hand corner. If you start typing in Desktop Anywhere and hit the little magnifying glass, it'll take you to the full download and installation instructions for both Mac and PC. So I will tell you, there's I've seen a lot of comments from Mac users who have a harder time than PC users. It is possible, though, to get Desktop Anywhere set up on a Mac, and it's totally worth it. It's absolutely and totally worth it. And here's the best way that I can tell you. I have a government laptop that was issued to me with this job. I started working at Headquarters Rio back in January. I came back to North Carolina in early February. It's sitting over on my desk over there because I had such better luck when stop movement and everybody started telecommuting. So much more functionality and better luck staying connected via Desktop Anywhere than with VPN on my government laptop. In fact, I kind of forgot to hook it back up, and now I don't know if the word is deprovisioned. I have to take it back onto base because now it won't let me log in at all. But it doesn't matter because Desktop Anywhere is awesome. I also wanted to point out that on Facebook, the Desktop Anywhere support team has a fantastic group on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and search AFRC Horizon View Desktop, it'll come up. It has a really long name. They kind of need to shorten the name, guys. It's a little ridiculous, but you'll have to answer some questions to be allowed into the group, just showing that you're in the Air Force and that kind of stuff. But not only is the peer-to-peer support from Desktop Anywhere users fantastic on there, but the support from the guys and gals who actually work in that section. If it goes down, they keep us notified of what's going on. If it has new functionality, they'll let us know. Really great. And I'll mention this later, but you know what? If you're not a Facebook user, then just make up a little account, don't friend anybody, and join the group. That's you don't have to social media to be social media, and it's going to give you some really great access to some support from those guys. So thumbs up to Desktop Anywhere from this girl, at least. Okay, let's talk about some of these other sites. So these are some of the other sites that I'm going to talk about today. Basically readiness, personnel, and then money, orders and travel. First thing is ArcNet. So ArcNet, you can log in directly with this URL. Now, at the end of the briefing, I'm going to give you a link to download a quick reference guide to some of these websites that has, help desk information and URLs and that kind of thing. You can also get to it by creating a favorite for it on the Air Force portal. There's a few different ways to get to it, but honestly, if you just copy and paste this URL in, it will authenticate you through the Air Force portal and then take you right to the website. And it actually is one of the less hinkier of the websites that we use. Traditional reservists use more functionality in ArcNet than individual reservists do. We basically just use it for readiness. So you'll click that readiness button, that pulls up your readiness report. And you know, as an IR, we need to check this pretty regularly. You should get emails when you start going yellow. If you don't, you might want to go in and make sure that the email addresses are updated, that you have a personal email address in the system, because you don't want to go red on stuff. Now, some of us have, because of COVID, that's different. But when that clears up, it's on us to stay green. Okay. Here are a few pointers about ArcNet. Detachments can put notes in there, like if you have something that you feel needs to be notated, I would contact your detachment on that. If you have, you know, shots, labs, your civilian dental form, the 2813, you can actually send those in to the headquarters Rio IRM people, and they will update that in your record in my IMR and ASIMs, which will flow over to ArcNet. I allow a couple of days to do that, and in just a few more slides, I'm going to show you specifically how to send that message in so that it goes to the right people in MyPERS. Okay. If you need help with ArcNet, the website does list a help desk, but you're actually going to get better service and get your problem fixed by either contacting your detachment or headquarters Rio training. They have access to help you fix that stuff. So again, a MyPERS ticket directed to IMA management with subject ArcNet help, and then they'll get you squared away. If for whatever reason you can't even get into MyPERS or ArcNet to be able to send a ticket, then you can call the Total Force Service Center, but that's going to take you more time than logging in and sending a ticket. All right, my IMR. This is where we go to check our medical readiness. And again, you want to be all green, like Sergeant Montemayor. This is hers. See, she takes care of it. So again, you can log in directly from the portal, same way that you would do ArcNet. It's also, you may hear it referred to as ASIMs as well. So my IMR ASIMs are the same thing. So that's where you're going to go to make sure, your PHA, your labs, medical profiles, etc., that you're good to go there. All right, let's talk about MyPERS, because I don't know about you, but I use MyPERS a lot. So the URL is mypers.af.mil, and it's a pretty easy website to get to. I don't usually get kicked out on Chrome or anything like that. The first thing I will tell you is set up a username and password. Yes, there are parts of MyPERS that are only accessible via CAC, but most of it actually you can get to with just a username and password. So if you see on this slide where it points to profile, incidents, and messages, you'll notice that the fourth item in that bulleted list there is change password. You are given a username, and you can get that set up and then create the password, and then you can get into MyPERS without needing a CAC at all right, which is huge. Also, the fifth bullet item there, that's my profile, and I am begging you, as the person in charge of sending you information that you need, please make sure you have a good personal email in the system there in MyPERS, okay? If you're not sure, go and double check. If you're not getting a Rio Buzz newsletter in your personal inbox every couple of weeks, then you've got a problem with whatever email's in there, all right? That's a good way to know. Did you know that you can actually get to MyPERS on your smartphone? Yes. It's pretty cool. You have to have a username and password set up, and then you go to the URL on your phone. You'll put in the username and password, and then it will email you a code, a numeric code, sort of a double authentication. You'll put the code in, and then you can get to MyPERS. You can get your incidents and messages. You can reply back. So don't think because you have a message that's only viewable on MyPERS that it's only available by CAC. It's not. You can get to those messages with a username and password even on your phone if you're not at home. The other thing I wanted to point out is down the left-hand side of the home screen, you'll see the words learn more about and then a whole list of stuff. About 2/3 of the way down, you'll see IMA management. This is where you want to go to find the correct links for submitting travel vouchers or pre-certified orders for pay on a long tour, there's medical information there. There's some really great information on the IMA management tab. It is not across the top. I'm hoping sometime it will, but in the meantime, you'll definitely want to check out that IMA management tab. There's a lot of really good information there. And then in the upper corner is just the regular search box, which is a good place to go if you need to. So I have this little bullet here, learn how the tickets work so they can go to the right department. So it's not just Headquarters Rio that uses MyPERS, it's the entirety of the Air Force Reserve and also active duty. So you can imagine if you just send in a message with like a general category on it, that will get passed from queue to queue for days and days and days where people try to figure out who the right person is for the message to go to. So this is how that works. Under the My Account, when you go to Incidents and Messages, there is a link there, a little button that says Email Us. When you pull that up, you're given what I have here in the screenshot. You'll put Air Reserve, you'll put Officer or Enlisted, and then if it's related to your status as an IMA, which the chances are excellent it probably is, then you need to select the category IMA Management. Right there, you've greatly narrowed down the number of queues it's going to have to go through to get to the right person. Now, I want to stop though and point out that travel and pay, they have dedicated submission links on that IMA management section. So if you need to send in a voucher for reimbursement or some sort of pay issue, don't use this general email form, okay? What you want to do is go to IMA management, select pay or travel, and then it has the dedicated links right there for you to be able to know which one to click. That's how you want to send that documentation in. So if you've had vouchers or pay that are taking longer than what we're posting as the times for them to be worked, you might want to check and see if you actually used the correct submission link or if you sent it in as a general email message, because if you did, that's probably why. All right. In the subject line, you can type whatever's in the subject. The more clarity that you can give to that subject line, the easier it's going to be for our technicians to figure out what to do with your message. So if you need help with ArcNet, write ArcNet help. If you need it to send in your dental form, you can put FOUO, IMR update. If you have a question about the Majors Promotion Board, put that in the subject. Make it easy for the technicians to figure out where to send your message, okay, so that you can get a reply back. In the body of the message, don't put PII. If you need to send PII, you need to attach it as a document, okay? That's part of how the encryption system works on MyPERS. Let's say you have an incident and it's worked and the technician closes it thinking it's done, but you still have questions, or maybe what you got reimbursed wasn't what you thought. Don't open a new ticket. Reply back to that ticket and it will reopen, okay? Handy little tips and tricks. Okay, there is another part of MyPERS that will allow you to access the Air Force Personnel Center's secure applications. This is what it looks like. We've circled the personal records display application. I'll talk about that in a minute. Reserve vacancies. Virtual MPF is probably the one I use most on here. I will point out AFMS, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is the fitness management system. I can't get to it from this link. I have to go through the portal for that. So FYI. All right. All right, so let's talk about AFMS, one of my favorite systems. I hope you hear the sincerity. Okay, click on AFMS 2. Now, this screenshot should be what you see. And then to pull up your fitness tracker, you would select fitness documentation. Now, when I log into AFMS, and this is whether I'm on a government computer, on my desktop anywhere, I've been told that it will render fully correct with the compatibility view, but I've heard problems with that as well. This is what I see. Now, you'll notice in the third paragraph, it says, click on the Reports My Report menu above to access the fitness tracker. Yeah, there are no buttons. I don't know if you can see that. So I call these ghost menu buttons. And this is actually a screen capture video, hopefully it will work, going over here, that will show you how to work around this. So instead of going to 17 different browsers, if you can get to the website, but the problem is that you're missing the buttons, what you have to do is hover right around underneath the Air Force sign. Because when you do that, this is what happens. And it's a good dexterity thing, because if you move your mouse off of it, all of them disappear. And there's your report. Yay! We did it. Okay, so if you need to pull up your fitness tracker, that's how to do it. I got to figure that one out a couple weeks ago. All right. PRDA or PRADA, the personal records display, you can get to it from the Air Force portal. You can also get to it from the MyPERS direct link off of the secure apps. It's listed in 2 different places, actually. If you look here, it says view my records, and then 2 more down it says access secure apps. It's listed there as well. However, it doesn't provide Air Force-wide access. In fact, I tried and I can't get into it. So if you can, that's awesome. And you can get to your performance reports and decorations and orders and all sorts of stuff, all of your records. If you can't, you can certainly contact the Total Force Service Center, which will get a ticket into the product people, or you can use my vector, which is one that I will cover a little later on. That's what I do, because it's a lot easier to get into my vector. If you are interested in looking at reserve vacancies, that is another one of the AFPC secure apps. It's under reserve vacancies or reserve vacancy finder. And when it comes up, this is what you'll see. You can actually just narrow it down. For instance, if I'm looking for a new IMA position, I like my IMA position. I would select IMA officer vacancies. But if I'm interested in maybe becoming an AGR, then I would select AGR officer vacancies. Okay, so they're brought up. You can pull them all up at the same time or divide them up by unit, IMA, or AGR. Most of the time, I haven't had any issues with the reserve vacancy site. I will say though that just an IMA to IMA trick, I've had a lot better luck just calling units and asking, because sometimes stuff doesn't end up there. So little, take a little initiative on your own. Just give them a call and say, hey, can I come work there? Because that'd be neat. All right. Virtual MPF. This is another site that we're going to use a lot. This is a whole suite of applications. This is just a list of some of the stuff that you can get to in Virtual MPF. Now, you can get to Virtual MPF from the secure sites or from the Air Force portal. The first one is something that you need to be checking often, and that is your points credit summary, your PCARs. This is where you make sure that your points are being correctly tracked for retirement and good years and all of that kind of stuff. Awards and decorations, you can actually pull a little picture of what your rack looks like, which is pretty sweet, very helpful if you need to order updated ribbons. Career data brief. This is important because you will probably have an instance where your active component says, hey, I need a CERF, which is, that's what they use. Well, we don't use a CERF. We use a career data brief, and you can get to it off of the virtual MPF. And there's some other stuff. DD-214 worksheet, there's proof of service letters. It's really, if you're not that familiar with virtual MPF, it's worth logging in and just clicking around to see what all is there. All right, so here are the 2 places for you to access the virtual MPF. Again, you can do it from the Air Force portal, or you can do it from the secure sites via MyPERS and AFPC Secure. All right, when you get to the virtual MPF, this is what you're going to see. Now, normally it's going to ask you to verify your email and phone number before it gets you to this point. Please do that. Okay, virtual MPF flows to MilPDFs and other stuff. So by updating your contact information here, you're going to be updating it in other systems too. Please make sure that we have a good personal email and phone number for emergencies as well. So if you have any suspenses, which isn't often, but sometimes you will, they'll show up in that upper corner. But most of the stuff that you're going to need to do is by clicking on self-service actions. So you've got assignments, you've got correcting your military record, promotions. Personal data is probably the one you'll be using most often, especially if you do need to update your actual personal data. When you pull up that section, that's where your PCARs is. If you want more in-depth instruction on how to pull up your PCARs, I did a virtual training a few weeks ago on tracking your FY and R&R years. If you ever have problems with that, highly recommend you watch that training. At the end of today's briefing, I'll give you the link on the Headquarters RIO website where you can find all of these virtual training courses and the videos, so you can have access to those. But your awards index, all that stuff. So you want to go to record review and update, which pulls this up. Always kind of fun. So I have a horrible memory. So for me, it's, I can click through here and go, oh yeah, I used to work there. That's kind of neat. But you'll want to check on your individual, all of these different things. If it's hyperlinked, you can update it. So, your email address, your religious preferences, personal email address, have I mentioned, it would be really helpful if you would update that. And some of these other sections also, again, it'll give you a pop-up to put in your email. Current duty information, there are some things you can update there, like your office symbol or your duty phone number. All right, so if it's been a while since you've been in virtual MPF, might not be a bad idea to go in and make sure all that information is up to date, okay? I don't know if I've reminded you to make sure your email is up to date. Yeah, I think I did. Okay, so anyway, when you update it in virtual MPF, then it flows to MilPDS and arrows, which is important so that your home of record is right in arrows when you are trying to put in an orders request. Okay, if you do update that information, you need to give it a few days before it flows to the other systems. Okay, arrows. So you can access arrows directly. Honestly, I Google it because I'm lazy. And I usually have no problem getting in regardless of browser. But you can also get to it through the Air Force portal. And if you've never been in Arrows before, it's possible to create a username and password. However, if you enable it for CAC login, then you won't be able to use a username and password anymore. So just keep that in mind. All right. So a couple of things about Arrows that I wanted to point out. You can check the status of what your orders are doing in Arrows by looking at applications in progress, and it'll show you what's going on. Just a side note, as somebody who works on the Headquarters RIO staff, most of the orders, approvals and verifications and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that has to do with budgeting, the money that comes from AFRIC. So just because you put your orders request in 6 months before your AT is supposed to start, it's not going to get worked until much closer to the date for a few different reasons. One, the chances are you might have to move it and then they'd have to mod. And two, the budgeting is done quarterly and they need to, work that when we get closer to it. So as long as you see the orders request as a pending or application in progress, it's there. The orders writers will see it and they will work it when it gets closer. I would say at least probably 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time. If there are no budget constraints or anything like that, you should start seeing movement. And if you don't, then I would ping your detachment. But don't expect orders to get completely routed and approved months in advance. It's just not the way it works. Money. All right. If you go to my account, you can update that for notifications. This is huge. When your orders get approved, you'll get an email that tells you, or if they get disapproved, you'll get an email that tells you, but you're not going to get an email if you don't put the email addresses in the account. Or if you only have your .mil in there, it's only going to go to your .mil. And if you're not cacking into your .mil email very much, you're not going to see it. So put your personal email there, and that way you'll be kept up to date on what's going on with your orders. Arrows is compatible with most browsers. A lot of times compatibility view is needed for IE. I get to it in Chrome with no problem. But the Arrows people tell me it does not work on a Mac or Linux. So referencing back to our earlier slide about using, the Internet Explorer extensions, or using Desktop Anywhere. Will make your life a lot easier if you are a dedicated Mac enthusiast. Here's a fun little trip. So if you do have to modify orders and then you go in to print them for your voucher, it's really easy to print the mod. I don't know if you guys have had this happen to you, but if you click the little print button, the only thing that pulls up is the mod. So I'm here to show you how to find your original orders because they're actually not easy to find. So you want to click the tracking number, all right, which is right here from your approved orders. So that's one of the selections on the side menu in arrows is to look at your approved orders. Click on the tracking number. And then from the drop down, this is a pop-up that comes up. And from that drop down, you want to select history modifications. And when you do that, this is what comes up. So you'll see here is the initial set of orders and then the mod right above it. So if you hit the print button right here, magic, you will actually find your initial set of orders and be able to print them and submit your voucher correctly. So isn't that awesome? Okay, this is just the numbers, phone numbers and emails for your orders writing cell members at the different detachments. So headquarters 2, or excuse me, Rio debts 2 and 3 share the same orders writers as well as 7 and 8. But if you know whatever debt you belong to, these are this is a phone number and email address that you should keep handy. Okay, keep in mind they get a ton of emails and a ton of phone calls, so you need to expect to probably wait a couple days if you know for a reply back. And how do I lovingly say this as both somebody on Rio staff but also an IMA since 2002? Try to go look it up yourself first. Okay, we have a guide. There are quick guides. There's travel guide. There's Facebook groups. There's a ton of places for you to probably get your questions answered. The Rio Connect app. So just, you know, if you try all that and you still have questions, absolutely, those orders writers are going to give you a ring back and help you out. But try to help yourself out first and them. All right, my little PSA. All right, UTAPs. First, you need to log into Arrows, which is kind of weird, but you will. You'll log into Arrows, and then there's a little drop down, and you select UTAPs from that drop down. And that's how you are going to enter the website where you put all your IDTs. Now, this is a fun little, I like these fun little tips and tricks. So this is a screenshot of what my UTAPs looked like a few months ago. And some of these messages were like 4 years old. Now, one would think that when they expired, because they have dates, you know, hey, it's like downtime happening, you know, July 17th, 2017. You would think that they would expire and go away, but they don't. So I found that over on the left-hand side of the screen, there's this yellow button that says Message Center. If you click it, it pulls up that same list of red messages, but they each have a little tick box next to them. And you can select all and delete. And now I don't have to look at them anymore. So it doesn't affect functionality. It's just, you know, you don't want to be screamed at by 4-year-old red messages when you log into UTAPs. That's how you get rid of them. All right. Now, UTAPs, if you'll notice that where'd it go? There we go. There is a help button at the top here. There are tutorials and guides there. So if you're not sure what to do, dig into those. UTAPs can definitely be a little weird. So familiarizing yourself and taking advantage of the materials and training and tutorials that are on there is going to make your life a lot easier. Now, if you've logged into UTAPs recently, you may notice that the calendar looks totally different than what we are used to. Do you want to have the old calendar back? Then you just click this little legacy button right there and it'll take it right back to the way we've been looking at it for years. If you would like an explanation about the new calendar and how to use it, what its functionality is, see the little tiny question mark up in the corner? If you click that, it takes you to a web page that explains everything. Thank goodness, because I haven't used the new calendar yet. So if you want to use the new calendar and learn how to do it, use that question mark. If you want to just go back to the old way, click legacy. Now, I don't know when they're going to get rid of the legacy calendar, so it's probably a smart idea for you to, go ahead and get used to the new one. All right, UTAPs definitely works best in Internet Explorer. If you use Edge, it'll work, but what the texts tell me is that you have to re-enter your PIN after every selection, which can get a little old. In Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, it loses some functionality. You have to have the ability for pop-ups to work, so don't block those. So compatibility view, Internet Explorer, when in doubt, desktop anywhere, especially if you're a Mac user, and then UTAPs works just fine, depending on how you rate just fine. Okay. Some members experience lockouts. What the technicians with UTAPs have told me is that if you go more than 30 days without logging into UTAPs, it's going to prompt you to answer a challenge question if you have the challenge question set up. So if you don't, I would go do that right now. If you don't have the challenge questions set up, then it's going to tell you to call the help desk. If you have the challenge questions between 30 and 90 days, you just have to answer a challenge question and then you're fine. But if you go more than 90 days, then it's going to ask you to call the help desk and you have to give the last 5 digits of your social security number to unlock your account. Now, I don't go into UTAPs all that often. I have never experienced this lockout, to be honest, but I have heard of other people saying they have. So I don't know what the difference is, but if you have experienced that lockout, that's why. And let's recognize that there's a lot of information, a ton of PII connectivity to our financial records and personal, health records. All these websites are protecting that information. That's a lot of why this happens. Okay, so give a little bit of grace as far as that goes. If you're somebody who gets locked out often, I would just put a calendar reminder in, hey, log into UTAPs today so that I don't have to call the help desk. And every 8 weeks or whatever. Because keeping in mind for TRs, they're usually going to log in every 30 days, I would think. I don't know, it's been a while since I did the TR thing. It is not compatible with Macs. They just flat out told me that. There was a report that there's an extension or emulator for IE on Safari that people have gotten to work, but it's not tested or directly supported by the UTAPs team. Oh, DTS. Okay. So before I talk about DTS, a little bit of quick schooling here. On your orders, flip to the second page. Line item E will tell you where to file your travel voucher. If it says DTS, then you file it in DTS. If it says RTS, and you're an IMA or PIRR, that means paper voucher. If you come to us from the TR world, you might think e-finance, and you'd be wrong because we don't use e-finance, okay? So DTS is a 2-step process, authorization and voucher. So what happens is that when you request orders and orders are finalized in arrows, if they are DTS orders, like your annual tour, or short tours, MPA or RPA of less than 29 days, back-to-back orders, there's some, okay? That's gonna flow directly into DTS and create an authorization. You as a reservist cannot go into DTS, well, you can, but you shouldn't, and it won't work. Create an authorization yourself, okay? So you will never go in to create an authorization. Arrows will flow that order into DTS and create the authorization itself. Then you can go create the voucher from that authorization, okay? Now, paper voucher or RTS orders, that's long tours, IDT travel reimbursement if you're on the critical AFSC list, or IDT lodging reimbursement, we do that with an 1164. Did a whole training on that a few weeks ago. You should have been there, so it's cool. But the links for that are on the training website. Here are some other things that will continue to be done by paper voucher. So I'm not going to go over all of this stuff, but the short version is just look at line item E. It'll say DTS or RTS, and then just do what it says, okay? And that we have quick guides and travel guides and IR guides that will tell you what to do to be able to how to file those, all right? If you need help with DTS, you need to contact your detachment and ask for the ODTA. That's your tier 0 first line of defense. If for whatever reason you have a time-sensitive problem and you can't get a hold of them, and if it's during the week, there is a live chat function via the Travel Assistance Center Monday through Friday. The next tier of help is the lead defense travel administrator, who really should only be contacted by the ODTA. That's where they go to get help. But if they're unavailable, it's a weekend, oh my gosh, I waited till the last minute, don't do that. And you know, my hair's on fire, then you can contact them, and that's at ARPC-FM, okay? There are a ton of training videos and help guides and all kinds of stuff though at that link right there, and they are linked off of the DTS site. So if you need, you know, if you're not familiar with DTS or they've updated a section and you're not sure how to do it, dig into some of those little training videos, and instead of waiting for people to call you back, you'll probably get an answer a lot quicker. The other thing I wanted to point out, this isn't directly related to websites, but it comes up a lot. So you might be saying, well, waiting for arrows to authorize my and complete my orders and flow to DTS, that leaves me like no time to make my plane reservations or my lodging reservations. But did you know that reservists can call a CTO and make those plane and lodging reservations without orders? Yes, it's true. Might you call a CTO and they say they can't do it? Yes. Should you then ask for a supervisor and provide them with the AFI information that tells them that they can? Yes. Now we're working on this from the headquarters Rio standpoint to try to get the CTOs to understand. I've actually had pretty good luck, but you can make travel reservations. All you have to tell them is you're a reservist. That's it. You don't need to tell them what unit you work for or any of that other stuff. What matters is you can call any CTO and book your airline travel and make lodging reservations or rental cars without orders. Now, you do need to provide them a copy of your actual orders 3 days prior to travel, because if you don't, then it won't get ticketed. They'll cancel it. All right. So, all right, that's my CTO speech. A little bit about my vector. You can reach this off of the Air Force portal, but here's a direct link. It was started about 5 or 6 years ago as a mentoring platform, but it has your documents in there. So, you know, I haven't really played around in here all too much to see what I think you can request, you know, people can like volunteer to be mentors and stuff, pretty neat. But if you just need copies of your OPRs or decks or career data briefs, stuff like that, they're all in there. You just click on my documents and just you'll scroll down, you'll get to everything. So AFPAS. All right, this is the Personnel Accountability and Assessment System. So if there were some sort of natural disaster or something, we need to know where all our people are, right? We're government assets. So making sure your information is updated in AFPAS will make sure that, you know, if you live in, you know, I don't know, Bemidji, Minnesota, and there's like the world's worst snowstorm, we're gonna be able to pull up that that's where you are and then call and check on you, make sure you're okay. Check and just make sure. You can go in here and update your data and make sure that we know where you live and where you are, who your dependents are, that kind of stuff. And you can update all of that information and make sure that it's accurate, okay? All right, and now the Rio Connect app. So for those of you who are already on here, awesome. You can basically look at the Rio Connect app as a smartphone-enabled quick connection to the HQ Rio public website. And by the way, we have just opened the Q&A. So if you have questions, you can start posting them in there now. But the guides, the resources, directories, all the stuff that you can find on the HQ Rio website, almost all of it is directly linked in the Rio Connect app as well. What I think the greatest part about the Rio Connect app is that if you go to groups, then you can join your detachments chat group. There are a couple of detachments that don't allow open chat, but they do allow you to direct message detachment leadership. But the other detachments do, and there's some, great, again, peer-to-peer help, but also detachment commanders and superintendents are on there answering questions. It's really very useful. Now, some people don't like to get all the notifications, and some people would like to have a search feature. Me too, and I'm the one who works with Straxus, who administers this app. We are working at trying to get a more honed way to set the notifications for you. So for instance, if you don't want a notification every time someone posts to your chat, you just want to be notified when somebody answers a reply to yours, that kind of stuff, it doesn't exist right now. You can either get notifications or not get notifications. Those are your two options. And there is no universal search function. We're working on that as well. But I will tell you this, probably the person who gets the most notifications is me, because I'm a member of all of the detachment groups and I see all of the notifications. So if I can handle it, you can too. But anyway, but we will push out notifications from HQ Rio on the app as well. So I think as far as, it might be a bit of a nuisance with notifications, but positive and value from the amount of information and connectivity that you're going to get from the Connect app. So you just go to the App Store and search Rio Connect, and then whatever detachment you are, like I'm Det 5, so the code, you'll need the code, it's Rio Det 5, no spaces, or Rio Det 7 or Rio Det 2, okay? All right. Okay, so, all the websites are working right now, but what if they stop working, or what if they update it and now I can't get it to work? So what if things change? I would probably say it's more accurate to say what about when they change, because they will, right? My two pieces of advice, this is IMA to IMA, is that you need to be proactive, is the first thing. Put reminders in your calendar. Look and see when your CAC expires and put a reminder 3 to 6 months in advance that you need to have that on your radar. Because if you don't live anywhere near a military facility, you're going to have to work a little harder to make sure that your CAC doesn't expire, right? Obviously, this is outside of the COVID stuff. If you're somebody who gets locked out of UTAPs, put a reminder on your phone. Hey, I get to log into UTAPs this week. Yay. Okay. And this goes with all sorts of stuff, readiness, connectivity, or putting in your AT request. Just don't wait till the last minute. All right. Be a little proactive. There are things that, as an individual reservist, that you have to keep track of individually, and that's one of them. My other piece of advice would be to be connected. You don't have to be social to be on social media, and what I mean by that is, taking advantage of the announcements that HQ Rio puts out on our Facebook page, the fantastic support the Desktop Anywhere team has on their group. You can go in and create a Facebook page with a made-up name and only log in and follow, our page and the Horizons Desktop group. That's fine. You're not going to get all the stuff people talk about, because if you're not friends with people on Facebook, you're not going to see all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, there's some connectivity, the other thing I want to mention is there are a number of unofficial Facebook groups for reservists and individual reservists. Those are fantastic. We are spread apart. You might not have other friends and acquaintances who are IMAs. So I have found Facebook to be incredibly useful for just being able to run ideas by friends or ask questions. In fact, that's where I learned about the ghost buttons for AFMs. So check that out. Every couple of weeks, we send out a newsletter called the Rio Buzz. I try very hard to keep it sweet and short and informative and not spam you with stuff. But the trade-off to that is you need to read the Rio Buzz, because the stuff that's in there is important. Lots of reminders or changes in policy or guidance. So if you're not getting the Rio buzz, you need to go to MyPERS and make sure that the personal email address that you have in there is a good one. Now, if it is and you're still not getting it, I haven't been able to figure out this side of it, but it might be that for whatever reason, your civilian email provider is blocking that message. That's not something I can fix. The quickest fix to that would be to put a different email address in there. I actually ended up creating a Gmail just for military stuff. And I have them, all on my phone, so I see them. So that would be a solution to that. If it's for whatever reason it's not reaching that email, make another one. They're free. And then of course use the Rio Connect app. That'll help a lot. Now I did make a quick reference guide with like help desk numbers, email addresses, links to guides for most of the different websites I talked about today. That QR code will allow you to pull that up, or it'll be linked on the HQ Rio training page. Actually, I think it's already linked now, if not right after this training. So that you might find that handy. We're going to keep that up on the website as well. Oh, all right. So this is where you get to ask questions, and I see them rolling in, which is fantastic. In just a couple of minutes, I'm going to end the live stream of the meeting. However, the Q&A will remain open, and we will keep asking and answering questions until everybody's good. Now, like I said, a recording of this training is going to be available at the same link, and we will post that. The website down here at the very bottom, the one that says HQ Rio Training, that's where all of our training is linked. So if you want to go back and see some of the other virtual training sessions we've done, like the FY and R year tracking or IDT lodging reimbursement, we did a supervisor training, I think 3 weeks ago, that was pretty awesome. And I personally would love it if you would use this, there's a link or a QR code to take you to a survey. You won't be able to access it on a government computer. It's a Google form. They don't like it, but you can do it on your smartphone or on a personal computer. I'd really appreciate it. It's a real quick survey, but that kind of feedback is really helpful for us. If you didn't get the slides at the beginning, this QR code will take you to the slides. And again, the slides, the survey, the quick reference guide, and a recording of this training will all be available at that training link in the bottom corner.